Today, I'll be trying to beat every LEGO Marvel video game within 24 hours. Across all 3 games, there are 50 levels, so in order to actually complete this in 24 hours, I'll have to beat every level in under 30 minutes. Now, this idea seems stupid, but my entire life, my friends have made fun of me for being terrible at games. So if I can complete this challenge, I can also hopefully prove them wrong. The first game begins with Dr. Doom literally blowing up Silver Surfer, or rather his surfboard, and it explodes into a bunch of cosmic bricks which get spread around the world. So he gets a bunch of other villains to help track down these bricks and get them back to him. With these bricks, he wants to create a Doom Ray to help rule the world, but first he needs to save it from an impending doom. But before we find out what that is, we are taken to the first level where we have to fight Sandman and the Abomination. A lot of this level was just me trying to figure out the controls, but the Hulk's main abilities in the game are being able to break open and pick up things with green handles, while Iron Man can blow up shiny silver things. I eventually got to the Abomination, which was a really quick fight, and then moved on to the Sandman. This boss fight was more interesting with it having a bunch of sand people to fight along with him. However, before the end of the battle, Sandman moved to a rooftop and Spider-Man joined the fight. His main thing is being able to discover things that sparkle with red and blue effects and pull on these red things with his webs. The fight was over pretty quickly after we forced Sandman to take a shower, and now just under 30 minutes I finished the first level, so I was making good time so far. In level 2, Captain America and Mr. Fantastic team up to defeat Doc Ock. Captain America's main thing is throwing his shield into whatever this is, which can turn things on, while Mr. Fantastic can go through vents and turn into pretty much anything. I mean, this honestly seems like overkill. He could have just helped him over the fence. Anyways, we chased Doc Ock over many rooftops while I completed various puzzles. After a while, we caught up to him, and again, Mr. Fantastic is just doing too much. But we ended up in Times Square where Spider-Man joins the fight, and together we defeated Doc Ock. And that was the end of level 2 at exactly 1 hour in, which so far is not a good pace, so I'm gonna have to try and speed it up. Level 3 has Black Widow, who can primarily turn invisible and hide from cameras, along with Hawkeye, who can open the same things as Spider-Man and also use his arrows as poles for parkour, which I won't mention again in this video, mainly because it'll get repetitive, but the parkour was such a pain across all 3 games. It never got any better and was always so frustrating. But they eventually get into Oscorp where we find Spider-Man, and after completing a bunch of puzzles find Green Goblin. And he drops us down into a lower part of Oscorp where I did over 15 minutes worth of puzzles before finally defeating Venom and completing level 3. Before the start of level 4, instead of just teleporting me straight there, the game had me fly across New York City, but then had me stop right in front of the start of the level just to get a boat working so I could slowly get over the water. This was not helpful for my time, but the level starts inside of the raft where it's now magically nighttime. And then the Hulk and Iron Man run into Wolverine, who is trying to stop Sabretooth. Wolverine is good for discovering things like Spider-Man, but his sparkles are yellow and blue. And now as I ran through the raft solving puzzles, the Abomination got broken out. And then we fought Magneto and Sabretooth on an elevator, which was a quick fight. After that, we found the Abomination, and I had probably the most frustrating fight so far. At the end of it, I had to build something, and no matter what I did, I could not get near it. The Abomination was doggy guarding it and spamming the same 2 attacks. So after like 2 minutes of this and slowly building it, I finally got it built and defeated him. We then find out more villains escaped like Loki, and that was the end of level 4. Level 5 again had me run across New York City, but this time as Iron Man with no pants, so I couldn't fly and it was much slower. I tried to steal a car to make it faster, but for some reason the guy that's guiding me tries to juke me out every time he turns. Oh my gosh. I apologize. Oh my gosh. This might be slower than running. Anyways, the level was honestly boring. It was just a quick 20-minute level in the Avengers Tower where I did a bunch of puzzles and beat the Mandarin along with Aldrich Killian. Level 6 switches back to Black Widow and Hawkeye, and they navigate through a Hydra base where the Human Torch shows up along with Captain America.
Red Skull, I'm gonna spangle you till you see stars.
What? We see Red Skull and Loki talking about this machine, which Loki uses to travel somewhere else. And then while we try to beat Red Skull, Wolverine shows up and trips him into the machine, which destroys it. And that causes us to not be able to follow Loki. Then we meet up with Thor and go to Asgard, which is where Loki went. And after going through various parts of Asgard, we catch up to Loki, who duplicates himself and creates the robot from the first Thor movie. And this honestly just drug out the battle even more. However, we defeat Loki, and Wolverine steals the Tesseract in hopes of locating Magneto with it. And now playing as Cyclops, who can melt gold things, and Jean Grey, who can control things with her mind, we save students from a burning X-Mansion. We then find Toad, who has Storm trapped, and after freeing her, we go through the X-Mansion some more before finding the Juggernaut and defeating him. We then cut to the Fantastic Four, who are going to Dr. Doom's castle. And after doing a bunch of puzzles, I found the Green Goblin, who is pretty easy to defeat. And then we confronted Dr. Doom and Loki, who trapped the Fantastic Four under some rubble and escaped. Nick Fury then warns everyone at S.H.I.E.L.D., and they send Thor and Iron Man on a mission to help track down the rest of Dr. Doom's partners. Spider-Man shows up, and we break into the ship and find Dr. Doom before he runs away, and then we find MODOK. His voice is really annoying. We defeat him, and then Dr. Doom escapes in a submarine when Jean Grey shows up and helps us find him underwater. This part was really annoying because she moved so slow. But we eventually get to Dr. Doom and knock him out. And that concludes level 10 in just under 5 hours, so I'm now averaging under 30 minutes a level, but I don't have much room for mistakes. So hopefully nothing goes wrong with my game. Level 11 begins with us still in the submarine when the Statue of Liberty, who's controlled by Magneto, grabs us and helps Dr. Doom escape with all the cosmic bricks. The Statue of Liberty then throws us into New York City, and we switch to Mr. Fantastic, Wolverine, and the Hulk, who go into the Statue of Liberty. And after doing some puzzles and making the way up to the top, we find Mastermind. Now during this fight, he controlled Wolverine, and after I beat him, it let me switch to him, but it wouldn't let me do anything else. I got stuck and no buttons would work. So I restarted the game and replayed the fight, and it happened again. I thought maybe I was doing something wrong, but I restarted again, and this time it worked and the cutscene played, so that added an unnecessary 10 minutes. He then does the same thing to Mr. Fantastic and the Hulk, and after that we defeat him, and that's the end of the level. Then Captain America and the Thing go to this island to fight Magneto, and after fighting a bunch of dinosaurs and getting about halfway through the level, Storm shows up and we fight the Rhino. And then after that we fight Magneto, only it wasn't Magneto, it was Mystique, and Magneto gets away again. And now Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Thor finally get out of the submarine and go to the ship where Doctor Doom, Loki, and Magneto are now building the Doom Ray. Through the level, we traveled throughout the ship and finally fought Magneto and defeated him. And now in the second to last level, Spider-Man, Captain America, Storm, and the Thing travel through the ship before we finally fight Doctor Doom and defeat him. And now all that's left is Loki, but the machine is now finished, and before the heroes can do anything, we see the big threat that Doctor Doom was trying to stop, which is Galactus. Loki teams up with him and they head to Earth to destroy it. In preparation, the heroes and villains make an alliance for the sake of saving Earth and team up to defeat Loki and Galactus. Now starting the last level, it splits you up into 4 teams and you just play as different characters and save the helicarrier from crashing. And then you build a mini Earth which Galactus tries to eat when Thor and Hulk jump out and hit him and Loki into a portal, sending them away. And that was pretty much the end of the game. Overall, this game was fun. I finished all 15 levels in just under 7 hours, so I wasn't doing terrible, but I needed to speed it up a little bit. Now because of how little space I have on my computer and how much space I needed to record all of this footage, I deleted each game as I finished it and downloaded the next one, which is why you see about a 20-minute time jump in between these 2 games. But LEGO Marvel Avengers is a second game and starts just like how the Avengers Age of Ultron movie does, as this entire game is based on the MCU movies. And most of the characters have the same abilities as they did in the last game, so it carries over nicely. One thing that is a lot better though is the combat. It just feels a lot smoother and is also more fun to play because they do more than just punch. But the level itself is just a bunch of puzzles and you just take down a Hydra base. It's exactly the same as the movie. In fact, there aren't even voice actors for the cutscenes, it's literally just lines taken straight from the movies. But I finished this level in just about 20 minutes, which is an amazing time. And I'm hoping I can make great time on this game because this is supposed to be the shortest game out of all 3, even though it has the same amount of levels as the last one. And now instead of continuing Avengers Age of Ultron, level 2 goes back and has you replay the events of the first Avengers movie. It starts with Loki entering through the portal and mind controlling Hawkeye, then escaping. Then you play as Maria Hill and get in a car to escape. I had to take down a bunch of cars while driving, which is very different compared to the last game. I mean, they never had a fight like this in the first game, so it was actually really cool. And after that fight, that was the end of the level, which I also completed in around 20 minutes, so I was making great time so far. It then shows S.H.I.E.L.D. recruiting characters like Hulk and Iron Man, but the actual level starts when they recruit Captain America and you play in a flashback. The main chunk of the level takes place in the train scene from the movie, where you see Bucky fall and Red Skull lose the fight, but you don't actually get to fight Red Skull since it's just a cutscene, and that's how level 3 ends. Level 4 begins with the first confrontation that the Avengers have with Loki from the movie. Then the next part is the fight with Thor in the woods, and after that the level ends. I'm going pretty quickly through this game because the levels are way shorter, and they're all based on the movie, so most of you probably already know what happens. But anyways, in level 5 I just fought the Hulk and then Hawkeye before knocking him out of the mind control and then fixing the helicarrier. Then we move on to the Battle of New York, and the first thing you do is play as Thor and fight Loki. During the fight I thought I broke my game because I couldn't move and this was all I could hear. It was so loud and I was so confident it was broken, so I restarted the level, and when I got back to that part it happened again. And then I realized I was just supposed to charge Thor up and make him knock back all the Lokis. I then fought Loki some more before he escaped, and then it brought me down to Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye on the ground. We saved 5 civilians and then Thor came down to join the fight. Now during the level I had to do this one section with a laser and was harassed by one Jatari the whole time. I still don't understand why none of the other characters came to kill him. They all literally just stood there. I mean, look at Thor, he's literally just standing there looking at the ground. But after that we fought on the bridge some more before the Hulk showed up and did his famous punch from the movie. Then all of the Avengers aura formed, and after that I played as Hulk and Thor on top of a Leviathan, which was honestly probably my favorite part of the battle. Then we all went into this building to save 30 of the same 3 people, and after that Hulk defeats Loki and Iron Man launches the missile into the wormhole before falling back through just like in the movie. The only difference is instead of Hulk yelling to wake Iron Man up, for some reason in the game they made Hulk give Iron Man mouth to mouth so hard that some of his armor flies off. I mean, I don't know whose idea that was because that did not happen in the movie. But anyways, that was the end of the Avengers movie and about 3 levels summed up. Level 8 is Iron Man 3, and it had me play through the ambush at the Malibu mansion with the Mandarin. Then I fought this one lady from the film before finally fighting Aldrich Killian, and that ends the level pretty quick. After that I played through Thor: The Dark World, which was just as boring as the movie but was over in about 20 minutes. The last level before moving back to Avengers Age of Ultron was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This one had me start on the boat before fighting Bucky on the street and then ending with the fight in the helicarrier. And this level also took about 20 minutes. All 3 were pretty quick, but the last 5 levels of the game are about Avengers Age of Ultron. So it starts right where the first level ended before making me do a bunch of puzzles and set up for a party, which turns into a battle when Ultron Mark 1 comes in. After that fight, the next level takes us to Wakanda where we fight Wanda and Quicksilver in this old ship, and my game broke right at the end. I did about 10 minutes of this level before I was supposed to use Captain America's shield to shoot Wanda's power beam back at her, but it literally wasn't deflecting off the shield, so I had to restart the whole level and do all those puzzles again before it finally worked and went to the cutscene. At this point I was pretty frustrated, but then I got to fight the Hulk and the Hulkbuster, which was honestly pretty cool. The next two levels are really boring. It's just a bunch of puzzles and fighting. The only big things that happen are the first fight with Ultron on the truck, and then Sokovia gets lifted up. Now the last level of the game begins with Iron Man and War Machine fixing up these small ships with civilians on them to help them safely get on the helicarrier. Then Thor and Vision fight Ultron, and at the end of the fight Ultron got a hold of Thor, but all I had to do was punch Ultron and save Thor. But no matter what I did, I could not hit him, and there was literally nothing else I could do in the level. So I very angrily restarted, thinking I would have to just restart the fight, but no, the game took me all the way back to the Iron Man section, so I had to redo everything. What the frick? I have to redo all of this? So about 10 minutes later, I was back at the end, and this time Thor's hammer was on the ground, which wasn't there the first time, so I picked it up and that triggered a cutscene, meaning I was literally one click away from a checkpoint. But then I fought some more Ultron bots before Iron Man, Thor, and Vision beamed Ultron, and then Hulk later finished him off after he tried to escape. And that was now the end of LEGO Marvel Avengers. I finished at about 14.5 hours, so I have a little less than 10 hours left to beat the next game. So after another 20 minutes, because I had to download the game, which pretty much put me at about 15 hours, I figured with how quickly I beat the last two games, it looked like I would have more than enough time to beat this third one. Even with it being the longest game by an extra 5 levels, it seemed like this would be an easy challenge. However, I was so very wrong. This game was the most frustrating and tedious playing experience by far, and the game made sure to make that very clear in the first 10 minutes. As soon as I started, Drax got stuck infinitely jumping in this corner, and I needed him to progress in the level, so after wasting 10 minutes trying to get him out, I finally just gave up and restarted the whole level. This time I kept Drax far away so he could open the stupid door, and I was off to a terrible start, but I was hoping I could recover since I had extra time for mistakes. But again, the game was not on my side. The second level was by far the longest level in any of the games so far, taking me about 45 minutes to complete, and these two inconveniences took away most of the extra time I had gained from the first two games. So now I had to really lock in and try my best to not make any mistakes. Now something I want to point out is this game has a lot of filler. For example, before you can start a level, you generally have to complete a task that adds about an extra 10 minutes in between levels. Now this was a thing in the first two games, which I left out for the most part, but it was so much more time consuming in this game. Each level also comes with an unskippable yap session from J. Jonah Jameson, and it was always so boring and clearly just there to extend the playtime. It got to a point where I just went on my phone during those cutscenes because they were so useless to the actual story. But level 3 starts with a few heroes going to this castle, and it ends with them defeating the Black Knight. And just a little backstory, this game is heavily revolved around time, as well as Kang, who is the main villain of the game. He mixed a bunch of worlds and multiverses together after level 2, which is why we're here. And honestly, most of the game is insanely boring. I don't know if it's just because I'm on the third game, but honestly it wasn't all that interesting. And the levels are very formulaic and super repetitive, so I'm just gonna speedrun this story. And I'm not gonna talk about the 40 different villains you fight because most levels have 2 to 3 villains. But in level 4 we go to Wakanda and fight Ape Man, which I want to point out during this fight I defeated him. As you can see, his health bar is empty, but since I did it so quickly, the level didn't get to play its next wave of attacks, so it just gave him some of his health back. And this happened a lot throughout this game, where I would defeat a villain more than once because I did it way too fast, and the game just wouldn't let me defeat the villain until it did all of its waves or played all of its mid-battle cutscenes. So this made the game way more frustrating and time consuming, and at this point the timer really started to worry me, as each level was taking me about 30 minutes or more to complete, and if they didn't get shorter I was not going to beat this game in time. And at level 5 was whatever. The coolest part was this plane fight at the end. Then the Guardians of the Galaxy go to the Wild West, and there's this really cool train level. This was actually one of my favorite levels from the whole game. And then we went to Asgard and fought this big lava guy, and this is when I realized every fight in this game was going to be big and grand and take forever to complete. Then we went to the Sanctum Sanctorum and did literal house chores for puzzles. What am I watching right now? Why am I writing a table? And then there was this very frustrating boss fight, and I think this is a good time to mention that in almost every boss fight in this game, the villains have some magical force field or a lock on their health bar for most of the fight. This drags out every boss fight. It makes it even more tedious because most of the fight you're just waiting for them to get out of their stupid force field. And not to mention, the most frustrating thing from this entire game is when they aren't in a force field, you could be right up on the villain facing them and swinging 100 punches, but if they're moving or doing pretty much anything at all, you won't hit them more than once or maybe twice. This is, in my opinion, the biggest problem with the game, and probably added an overall 45 minutes to the entire experience just waiting and doing 0 damage during boss fights. Now after this, we return to the Avengers Mansion, where we learn that there are several shards spread around the map that we need to defeat Kang. We then spend the next 9 levels just defeating villains and fighting these stupid shards. I promise there is pretty much nothing else that happens. It's just 9 levels of J. Jonah Jameson yapping, doing stupid puzzles and playing tedious, forgettable boss fights. That's pretty much all that happens, and now we're on level 18 with a little over an hour and a half left. So I pretty much have to beat each level in 30 minutes or less, or else I won't be able to beat the game in time. I basically have almost no room for error. So level 18 began with us finally building the machine and quickly having to fix it up after some problems came along. Level 19 had us blow up Kang's shields on his building, then we broke in. Right when we were about to fight him, he escaped and left us with this big pink dude. It was a very easy fight, and now I started level 20, which was the last level of the game with only 50 minutes left on the clock. And I'm not sure how long the level is going to be since it's the last one, but it starts off with just a bunch of puzzles which I was trying to speedrun as fast as possible. And I eventually got to Kang and the fight was pretty cool. At one point he got really big and Captain America had to use this machine to also get really big and fight him. That was honestly the coolest part. But after we defeat him, Kang's assistant betrays him and turns him into a baby. And after watching a few cutscenes, the credits, and the post-credit scene, I finished the final game with just under 30 minutes to spare. But honestly, I wasn't that happy that I beat the challenge, or even that I proved to my friends that I'm not so bad at video games. I was more happy to just put the controller down and spend my time somewhere else. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This one took forever to make compared to normal, but it was fun to revisit all the old games I grew up with. But if you enjoyed this video, consider watching another video on the end screen now.